Welcome back. I hope your paddle season has been very successful so far. I'm Bobby Ann, the community manager of Girl Paddlers, joined by Kimberly of Rock today, instructor and owner of Rock and Flow Yoga, an award-winning podcaster herself, and Girl Paddlers Virginia moderator. Kimberly, thank you so much for being here today.
Hey, Bobby Ann, thank you so much for having me. This is very special to me considering what Girl Paddlers means to me, so thank you.
So excited to have you here. Where are you joining us from today?
I am coming at you from Reston, Virginia.
Ah, beautiful area. Love Virginia so much and hoping to be able to come visit during the fall where we got a little stuff happening in the background that I can't wait to tell everyone about. But me and Kimberly actually have gotten to hang out in person before because she was an attendee of our very first Girl Paddlers retreat in Burgess Falls.
It was a blast. I had the best time. You organized it so well. The group of girls just meshed really well. We had so much fun. Oh my goodness. I was sad when it was over.
Yeah, me too. I actually really considered about doing that again this year. It really was a great group and it was such a fun trip and it was such a good time to get to hang out with you. You were not just an attendee though. You were our yogi for the weekend as well.
Yeah, that was an honor. When you're doing something that like you are just excited to do personally, and then there's that element where you get to share like one of your passions with a group that you are, it's so dear to you. That was like really fun. It's funny because it makes you nervous because the people are so special to you, even if you've taught a million times.
Well, I have to say, and I'm not just saying this because you're on the podcast, that genuinely was one of the best yoga sessions I've ever experienced. You did such a good job planning that, picking out the right spot. You had this gorgeous little shaded grass area with a nice view of the park. You had created a custom playlist for us, just for us. You kind of had some chats ahead of time, asking what everybody's favorite songs were, what kind of music they listened to. And I thought that was so special. And then the pace was just exactly what we needed to prep for the paddle for the day. And then you ended the session with individual aromatherapy moments, which I've never experienced during yoga before. I love aromatherapy. I thought that was a really cool way to wrap everything up. And it was just lovely. And I wanted you to know that.
Aw, thank you, Bobby.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it really was. And I'm so excited to be able to partner in the future for other people to experience that because you could just tell you are the type of person that's made for that. You just have that energy, and everything about it was so peaceful and relaxing, but also, like I said, exactly what we needed to prep for the paddle ahead. And it set the tone for the whole weekend, and it was just lovely. And I'm excited for other people to experience that in the future as well.
Well, it
So.
was an honor. I'm super stoked to partner up again for something like that, and
Yeah.
we'll soon to be told.
Yes, absolutely. And if I'm not mistaken, our Burgess Falls trip was your very first time ever kayaking. Is that right?
Yeah, so I hadn't even realized because I get so excited about this stuff. I'm always like, girl paddlers, count me in. Like, I don't care where we're going, I don't care what we're doing. Just like, I love them so much. I want to be part of it. And then I had told you, I realized, I was like, oh, yeah, we're not stand up paddleboarding like I was used to or kayaking. I was like, oh, I have never kayaked before in my life. So, way to do it, like baptism under fire. But like the group was so incredible, and like understanding and supportive of, and same with you as a leader. I had a blast. Like I could not have asked for a better first time kayaking experience. Like it was just amazing.
I'm so glad to hear that. And you were actually not the first one on that trip or the only one on that trip that was a first time kayaker. We had multiple other girls that just signed up with friends and were like, yeah, I'm along for the ride. I didn't really know what we were doing. And so, we had quite a few in the group that was their first experience kayaking. And I'm so glad. And we've actually had several of them join other trips too. So I think that was really special and just, a reflection of how great of a crew that we had. And that is actually the perfect transition in laying the groundwork for what today's topic is going to be about, which actually centers around your first experience with stand up paddleboarding. But before we get there, I want to jump all the way back to the beginning where you were scared of open water. Where do you think that fear came from?
Honestly, I'm not too sure. I've contemplated that myself. I grew up with an in-ground swimming pool. Like I was like a little like dolphin my whole life. I loved playing in the pool. And I never thought about it before, and then the first time I was ever in a lake, I noticed that I had anxiety and I was like frozen to the point where it was like dangerous the way my body was kind of seizing up in the water. I really am not sure if that's because my head went to like, it's not a contained space, like that safe space of like a pool having like specific parameters and you could see everything in your line of sight. And, I think it was about like teenage age when I first got in a lake for like just immersed in a lake type thing. And I was like, oh my God, I can't see the bottom. I can't see how far away the edge is, like all that kind of stuff. And it took me by surprise because I didn't go into it knowing that I was going to be fearful, which sometimes in life, in those things, you do know you're going to have a fear of something when you encounter it. It was just completely, I was blindsided by it.
I think that's something that there's something in everyone's life where they can relate to with that, which is that similar feeling of not knowing that it was something that you were going to run into. And, I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to, which is why I'm so glad that we're going to be sharing your whole story and transition from having that experience and having those feelings, which are so visceral, to being able to be on the water full time and thoroughly enjoy it. So let's talk about your first experience stand-up paddleboarding, which we also might reference as SUP occasionally if you guys are not familiar. So what was that? How did the experience go? What were you feeling? What was it like?
Sure. So I decided to take a lesson at my local lake. And it was like one of those Eventbrite events. So I was like, oh, I'm curious. Let's see what this is about. Like it sounds like a fun summertime thing. And I had forgotten about lakes and my reaction because, I hadn't been in a lake in like, a decade. So I was like, uh-oh. But I have to say, like, it was good that I didn't realize that and focus on it because the instructor was so incredible. And the people I was with, again, like, I've been so fortunate to be in these amazing communities and these activities and events that I've participated in. And I was so focused on the sport of SUP and like enjoying it and wanting to learn about it that it completely squashed my fears and it distracted me from the open water aspect so that I could like be present in the, and listen and learn and enjoy the sport for what it was. And that's what I kind of took with me in all the stand-up paddleboard experiences I had after that. I was like, okay, let me not focus on my fear. Let me focus on the joy. And if I'm enjoying myself and I, enjoy like the people and the sport itself, why should I allow that fear to take away from that? And it was kind of like a stereotypical sort of mind over matter, but a little bit deeper than that for me. Because I was like, I just fell in love with the sport. I can think of all the things that are possible with this. It would be a shame, to like lose that just because of this fear. So what can I do? How can I work around this? And that was getting familiar, looking in advance, like, where am I going? What is this lake? Like, where is it located? All that. And like, not paying attention, like, oh, look, there's a turtle. Like, turtles are sweet. I'm not going to get hurt by a turtle. It's all good. Like, enjoy nature instead of being scared of the nature. And I think that's a big help in that situation, also.
Mm. That's a really strong mindset to have. I think most of us would have been really in our heads about attending an event where you're not familiar with anyone, you're trying a new experience for the first time. How do you think you overcame convincing yourself not to back out? Because I think most of us would have approached it that way, or maybe psyched ourselves out at some point of being like, I've never done this before. I just remembered I have a fear of water, because you've obviously gotten to that point where you're valuing the experience over your fear. But how do you think you convinced yourself not to back out?
That is an excellent question. I think it's a combination of things. So I already paid and I already took the time. So I,
Financial motivation is so strong.
oh yeah, don't underestimate financial motivation. And then like also I think it was the fact that like I would regret the missing out. I was like, okay, so, is this really worth it? Like, I'm in a safe, controlled environment. I'm in a group of people that I feel supported by, so that allows you to let go to an extent so that you can put those fears aside. Now, if it was a legit fear like skydiving and there's all these factors that like are possibly uncontrollable, that would be different. But, to say that I truly am in a controlled, safe environment to an extent, so let's not get hung up on the fearful aspect. Let's get hung up and switch to the, safety aspect, the fun aspect, the community support aspect. And that's what I used in all my sub experiences moving forward. Like every time I would feel like, okay, I'm at a new like location, like I'm in a sea now paddleboarding, or I'm in a different lake, I would remind myself, okay, let's snap out of this and focus on like the fun, the experience, the people, and the tools that I was given by instructors to be able to apply. Like I've got this. I've got myself, type of thing. I have the knowledge I could use, and let's make this fun. Let's make this memorable. That's the focus.
I have to agree. And, you had mentioned skydiving. I had a very similar experience with skydiving that you had with water. I've never been afraid of heights. I was always one of those kids that was just like running and jumping off of things for no reason. And a friend of mine signed me up for skydiving. I just was fully unprepared when I got there. I'm like little baby giraffe legs the whole time, and I couldn't get my body under control. And I really was in the same scenario that you were, where you're just like you have to like think about missing out on these really cool experiences. And I think that is like one of the stronger points to kind of push people to just do things anyway, even if you're absolutely terrified. And you've obviously gotten to such a healthy mindset with that and been able to get to a strong point where you're enjoying it all the times. If you would have let that overcome everything, then you would have missed out on years and years of cool experiences, because you've been able to branch off and do so much more after that.
Yeah, I had a few people in my life that I had lost to cancer and
Mm.
multiple sclerosis. And they really taught me a lesson, actually, and also, go to them and think of them in these kinds of situations. And I'm like, they had all these things that they planned for their lives that they never got to do. Like, how sad is that if I have these opportunities and I don't take them? Like that's such a shame, because it's truly like a gift in life. So that's another thing that I try to focus on, in these situations of drawing up like okay, let's go for it. And again, girl paddlers, like I really mean this, like don't underestimate the power of women supporting women. It is so incredible when you get into a situation and you feel fearful in any kind of way about something, and the community around you of women empower you to say, you've got this. Like kayaking, like you mentioned, I never had gone kayaking before. They were like, you've got this. This is no problem. Just think of this or do this. Like, that makes a huge difference.
I think that can be part of the scariest part of trying something new for the first time is not knowing what to do and not sure, trying to do it for the first time by yourself. Like, having people around you to really push you to do that, I couldn't agree more. It makes all the difference in the world because, it is sometimes near impossible to pull yourself out of your own head, because you can imagine all these different scenarios. You could, talk yourself out of something much more easily than if you have somebody there kind of helping you be assured that the things that you're worrying about maybe not even are real, that, they're not even scenarios that you would run into, but you've convinced yourself ahead of time before even trying that they would be scenarios. So yeah, support, having somebody there to hold your hand and, pull you along when you're not feeling confident about yourself. Other people's confidence can rub off. I fully believe that, you can borrow somebody else's confidence for the moment and and get through a situation if you're with the right group of people. So thank you so much
Absolutely.
for bringing that up as a point because I couldn't agree more. So I would love to now jump forward to more present day and talk about your becoming an instructor experience. You went from being terrified of water to joining a stand-up paddleboard course by yourself for the first time to now being not only a stand-up paddleboard instructor, but a yoga paddleboard instructor. How did that happen?
Yeah, it's been quite a wild ride, I have to say. So after I had that first experience, at that event, I signed up for more classes that summer because it became addicting and I loved it. And then I started to have the confidence to go out by myself. And then I had signed up to do like a paddle around the island event, which was like you could go into it for like timing if you're a hardcore paddler or just like leisurely. Like for me, it wasn't about the timing, it was about the completion of it. Like, oh, I did this. Like,
Kind
and
of like a
coming
marathon
from
situation where it's like some people go in it for different reasons. That makes sense.
exactly. And to me, it was all about just doing it and completing it, not about the timing, especially coming from the starting point I had come at with the sport. And then after that, I saw Girl Paddlers and just fell in love with the organization, joined, became a regional moderator. And I think immersing myself in your activities was super helpful too. And like kind of like keeping me accountable and keeping me on track and go, okay, don't lose sight of this thing that you love. You're now a part of a community in which you can do like all these other cool things. And I saw it through the group. And then, I was like, okay, I think I want to take the next step. And honestly, I do these things again, sometimes like it's like the Gemini in me. I'm either going to overthink something or I go into it and I'm like, maybe I should have looked into that a little bit more before I went ahead with this. So what I did is I researched like one of the top instructors in the US, and I found that was through Turquoise Floating Yoga. So I signed up and I saw they had a course that you can get certified as a stand-up paddleboard instructor and as a stand-up yoga instructor. And I already had my yoga certification and owned Rock and Flow. So I was like, oh, I want to like organically layer onto that. What's in my life that makes sense? And it was the paddleboarding. So I went to Florida for the training and had just an incredible experience, like top training that is an understatement of what you get. Again, met amazing women, came out of that with my certification and was like, all right, let's do this. Where do we take it from here? And then just layered it onto the business. Last summer, I did both for the first time, both for the Reston Association. I taught stand up paddleboard and then also did it for the yoga company on the side, for myself.
Wow. Where did you do your certification?
So I did it in Florida with Turquoise Floating Yoga. And if people want to look that up, she's very strict and for good reason. I feel like I came out with Like, to me, okay, so there's certain things in life, right? Like if you want to learn something, you could learn it at different levels from different people. And sometimes you could go like a less expensive route and not top of the line route, depending on what it is. But I take safety as the number one priority, whether it's land yoga or water yoga. I take people's like health and wellness as a top priority. So I wanted to learn from the best, and that program offered the safest, best training that was available for SUP and SUP yoga. Absolutely was
Yeah.
true.
It sounds like an incredible experience, and it just makes sense for you. What a natural progression. And I mean, can you imagine if you would have missed out on being able to experience all that, if you would have just at the beginning decided, like, this is too scary, I'm not going to take this first class? To,
Yeah.
being able to bring others into it, not just experience it for yourself, not being able to just enjoy it for yourself, but introducing it to other people and then being able to teach them too.
Absolutely. Like you never know how something's going to organically unfold. And it truly, that's the way it goes. I'm not even saying that in a yogi way. I'm saying that in a matter of fact life way. And I would have missed out on a whole chapter of my life if I hadn't experienced that and didn't pursue it, exactly to your point. So I'm so, so happy because it's brought incredible like joy to my life. And again, like I'm a lifelong learner, so I've loved learning about both sports and all the elements. You think you know something, you're like, I've got this. And when you take a professional version of the instruction for something, you're like, oh, yeah, that's really good. I wasn't doing this right or that right.
Sonia and I talk about this a lot of just, there's endless ways to continue learning. Even if you feel like you've been doing something for years and you know everything that you could possibly know about a subject or a sport or whatever it is, there's always more to learn, actually. You discover there's different ways to experience it, there's different avenues to take. There's always just more to learn, and it just increases the enjoyment even more so the more that you layer that on. But it seems like you're leveling up pretty quick. And we're proud of you for that. And I think that's very inspirational. And I hope other people are feeling the same as they're listening to this, that you can start from the very, very bottom of not knowing anything, not only not knowing anything, but actually being scared of the thing, to then becoming a leader in the space. And I'm glad to see you growing, and I hope that this is enough inspiration for someone else listening to try out whatever it is that they have in their mind that they're scared of trying to.
Aw, thank you. I'll tell you, I started out as a downhill skier when I was a little girl. And there was this feeling immediately when I was little that I felt of like a freedom and an exhilarating thrill from it. And I lost touch with that through the years, and I couldn't find anything that gave me that same feeling. And then when I started to do paddleboarding, I reconnected with that thrill, like that uh, freedom of being on the water and like the exploration and the camaraderie and just the beautiful settings that are endless that you could take the sport. And the fact that maybe you're not jamming on stand up paddleboard at the time, but you know what? It's okay because there's kayaking, like there's options. And that's unusual in a sport to be able to like experience something, but have different ways in which you can do it.
And that's actually a lot of where Girl Paddlers blossomed from is, Sonia, she had friends that were doing one part of the sport and she was doing the other, and they couldn't find groups that were doing both. And they wanted to be able to hang out together on the water, but they wanted to be able to paddle the way that they wanted to paddle. Some wanted to canoe and some wanted to kayak and some wanted to stand up paddleboard, and we just needed a space for that. So here we are, and I agree. I think there's just so many ways to enjoy the water, and that's what the podcast is all about too, is encouraging people to try out different ways. As adults, I fully believe that we should continue to try things out. It's really easy to get into our day-to-day life. And the older you get, it does get harder to be able to explore. You get kind of set in your life and, kids happen, marriages happen, and then you're like buying a house and you've got your 9 to 5 job, and it's so hard to continue to be exploring the world and trying out new hobbies because, a lot of times we can't kind of get into to daily life where we're like, I got like 2 hours a week to watch TV and I'm exhausted by the time that happens. But, when you do get those opportunities to try something out, I encourage everyone to explore. I think that's the most prime example of this, of you just never know what you're going to discover. You don't know what friendships you're missing out on. You don't know what experiences you're missing out on just because you've convinced yourself like, that maybe you don't have enough time, or maybe, I think the older you get, it's a little harder to start new things just because you could talk yourself out of it. There's a lot of reasons to talk yourself out of doing things the older you get, but I think it's maybe even more important as an adult than when you're a kid to try new things out.
Absolutely. Reconnecting with that joy, there is nothing like it. I cannot tell you how many like activities in the past couple of years that I reconnected with that gives you that, free spirit, joyful feeling. And you made an excellent point that I absolutely agree with. Like, so the group, for instance, how you offer kayaking and stand up paddleboard. Well, if I didn't have that happy accident of the, the kayaking part, like I would have never known, like I love kayaking. So like, it's worth it. It's almost like that thing when your parents used to tell you, like, try the food before you say you don't like it, just at least try it. Like, that's true in life with other things. Like, if I didn't try these things, I would never know that I love them. And, like, what a shame to be missing out because of that? So even if you like stand up paddleboard, like give kayaking a try, you never know. And then if not, know what? No loss. You go back to your stand up paddleboarding. So there you go.
Exactly. And that's why we try to offer a variety of different experiences too, to kind of give people that opportunity to do it in a safe space where people are, different levels. You might be with other beginners, you might be in a group that's like got more experienced people too, but it's much easier to do things in a group setting for sure. If you're trying out just a different sport, a different vessel for the first time, it's much easier to do when you have that group of people around you rather than just like going off by yourself and like getting out on the water and being like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I hope that that's, we can continue to do that and create more unique experiences and give people opportunities to explore in safe spaces with really fun people. Because I love to watch people connect over things like this. It's one of my favorite parts of being involved in podcasting. It's one of my favorite parts of being involved in Girl Paddlers is watching people connect like that. Burgess Falls was a prime example. So many people left with new friends that they're still connected with, and I see them posting together afterwards, and they didn't know each other beforehand, and it's special. It is.
It's very special. And I can't wait till the next trip. But then again, also, I can't wait to hopefully have a reunion with some of those girls. I get it, to your point in life. We have things that happen. We might not all be able to make it exactly, to the next one. But if a majority of us can, that would be so amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely on the forefront of my brain all the time, especially because I live in Tennessee. So it's one of the biggest areas in Tennessee for people to visit. So all summer long, I see people talking about it, and I would love more than anything in the world to have a reunion with such a fantastic group. And we've mentioned fear a lot during this, and fear is a powerful emotion. And water, I think, especially for people who have not grown up around it, is a very common fear. If you could share one thing that would push someone over the edge of trying that new thing, wanting to get into water sports, what would that advice be?
So I would say just focus on again, like the activity itself. Like try not to focus on the fear. I say try because I don't want to say don't. Like, I am not the same, another person. So I can only speak for myself. But I would say cut yourself slack. Try not to focus on the fear part. Try to focus on like the excitement of the adventure, the connecting to a community, the thrill of going other places, and the setting, the fresh air, the natural surroundings, the empowerment of it. Like that's another thing. Paddling is very empowering. Everyone's talking about like women and strength lately, and that's a sport that definitely makes you stronger and makes you feel empowered.
That's a really great tip. That's been the core of the whole conversation today. And yeah, I mean, again, you never know what you're going to be missing out on if you don't try. It's easier to say, well, just like don't think about it. Reality, we're going to think about it, but doing it anyway is the key point. Nobody's saying that you just should just get over your fears altogether. But, if you can find a way, find an avenue to push yourself to do it anyway, even as you're scared while doing it, that's going to be the easiest way to get over anything in life, So I love that point. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, question, do you have any adventures coming up this year that you're excited about? What kind of paddling things do you have on the horizon?
Well, I'm looking forward to the reveal of the fall, so I won't mention that yet. But other than that, I have got, I'm doing a lot of local paddling because of my schedule, and doing a lot of travel for the yoga festivals. So I work it in as best I can whenever I can. And then, it ebbs and flows. But 2026, I'm hoping to plan ahead. In December, I try to plan for the year ahead and all those adventures. So I will be absolutely trying to pick my next big sup adventure or paddling adventure in general.
Great. Now, you do, like you mentioned, you do a lot of festivals. You're very involved in yoga. I know that sometimes you're still doing some sup yoga. Where can we find where to find you if somebody wants to join you for an adventure?
Well, if you go to rockandflowyoga.com, I have private and public events. So there's an event calendar, and that's where it shows like all the places that I'm doing different variety of classes, from like land vinyasa flows to festivals to sup yoga. And then also, I will travel anywhere in the country that someone would like, for private sessions. I think a new way of looking at things to me for wellness, I have found like this past year, I started an area for brides, because I feel like, people are looking for healthy alternatives. It used to be like, oh, let's have this like wild, drunken bar crawl experience. But I think like having a more meaningful memory for you, your friends, and family in a healthy way is really like more fun to have as a memory. So I started doing packages that are specific for brides, whether it's stand-up paddleboard yoga with your friends, and for your bridal party type situation, to like just zen moments on the day of.
I think that's a beautiful option because you're right. And wedding planning and being involved in just any kind of huge event like that is stressful. It is stressful. And, a lot of brides after the fact, they have the same kind of comments of like, well, I wish I just wouldn't have been so involved in trying to make everyone happy or trying to organize bouncing around to all these different places for a bridal event. Having like a nice, peaceful, relaxing day before the wedding and having your girls like come together and experience that so everybody could just zen out for the rest of the time. I think that's a beautiful option. So I'm glad to hear that you're doing that. So if we have any new brides on the horizon, check that out. You will love experiencing that. I know this firsthand because I've done a session with Kimberly. So I can only imagine what you've got planned for the brides. I know they would enjoy it. And you'll find all of this in the show notes. We'll connect you to Kimberly's website. We'll connect you to all of the things that she's doing. So be sure to check that out. And then, of course, you can join her for paddling chats over in our Virginia Girl Paddlers group. She's our moderator for there. So if you have any paddling questions, you can pop over there. There's all different ways to continue to connect and adventure with Kimberly.
Keep a lookout for a fall Northern
Yes.
Virginia Girl Paddlers event. We always try to plan one September, October. That's our 1 day one. So
Absolutely. Virginia is beautiful in the fall too. I cannot wait to come up for that. Regardless of anything that else is happening with Girl Paddlers, I'm coming up to Virginia in the fall because it is just too beautiful to miss out on. If you have never been to that part of the country during the autumn pop off of all the different colors, it's not something you want to miss out on. I have lived all over the country. I've lived abroad, and I will say, like, really, Virginia is that, like, when you see fall in movies, that's Virginia. Like, it's just the most aesthetic, perfect example of, like, what everybody tries to portray in movies, I think. So, yes, be looking out for more information on that. So, as we're wrapping up here, we have one last closing question that I love to ask everyone. The show's called Paddle Her Way, and I would love to know what paddling Kimberly's way is like. That can be what you paddle, how you paddle, where you paddle. What's it look like for Kimberly?
okay, I love that. That's a beautiful question. So, as what I started out to be on social media, Gal on the Go, that was where it all originated from. So, in true Gal on the Go fashion, paddling to me is experience. And what I mean by that is every time I'm on travel now, I used to do, well, I still do this with like yoga in studios. Every time I go on travel, I try to find a really cool, unique spot to go paddleboarding. And I think you learn organically about the area you're in by doing such a thing. You really get immersed in like the environment from a non-touristy perspective. So two of my favorite places that I would have never known about, Deep Cove in Vancouver, British Columbia, absolutely breathtaking. That was paddleboarding in a sea. And then Lazy Dog does an echo adventure I went on in Key West. And that was like a little bit opposite, a little bit of, wild paddleboarding fun. And so I just do that. Like anytime I'm going to go on travel, I look in advance to see what is a cool place to go paddleboarding in. And then I, schedule that. And that's my paddling my way.
I love that. Two very stunning places. British Columbia is at the top of my paddling list for sure. We talked about that in our Pride episode where we gave a bunch of really cool paddling places, and British Columbia is just so stunning. And also Key West. Like, come on, you can't beat Key West. So, it sounds like paddling Kimberly's way is being adventurous, try new things. Key thing for today, just try new things. Go explore. And as you mentioned, some of the coolest ways to find out about a place is being able to see it from the water. So couldn't agree more. Such a beautiful answer. Thank you for sharing all of your knowledge today, giving such great tips. Kimberly, it's always a pleasure. I cannot wait to get to hang out again in person.
Thank you, Bobby Ann. I really appreciate being on your show, and you rock.
You're incredible. Happy paddling, everyone. Enjoy the rest of paddle season.